Montana Territory, 1877. A spring sun stretched its golden fingers across White Rock Valley, where Thomas Kincaid stood tall on the station platform, nervously adjusting his string tie. At 25, Tom was one of the most eligible bachelors in Silver Creek, his 6-foot frame lean and muscled from years of ranch work. His sandy brown hair caught the sunlight beneath his freshly brushed Stetson, and he had taken extra care to be clean-shaven that morning, revealing a strong jawline, usually hidden beneath stubble. "Train's coming," the station master called, pointing to a plume of smoke on the horizon. Tom swallowed hard, clutching the small daguerreotype he'd carried in his vest pocket for 3 months. The image of Miss Abigail Pierce from Boston, his mail-order bride. Her prim smile and carefully arranged curls gave nothing away about her personality, but her letters had been proper, educated, and full of questions about ranch life. He'd answered each one honestly, perhaps too honestly about the hardships, but she had still agreed to come. His hands trembled slightly. 5 years alone on the Double K Ranch had taught him self-reliance, but it had also carved a hollow loneliness into his chest. The land could provide everything a man needed for survival, but nothing he needed for living. Evenings spent with only his shadow for company had convinced Tom that the frontier was no place for a man alone. But he'd also learned that letting people close meant risking the kind of pain he'd felt when his parents died of fever 3 winters past. Better to make a practical arrangement than risk his heart. The train whistle pierced the air, and Tom straightened his shoulders. A practical wife was what he needed. Someone educated who could help with the accounts. Someone refined who could make the ranch house a home. Someone young enough to bear children, but mature enough to understand frontier hardships. Love wasn't necessary for such an arrangement to succeed. In fact, it would only complicate matters. As the train squealed to a stop, Tom clutched the small bouquet of wildflowers he'd gathered that morning. The daguerreotype showed Miss Pierce in a high-collared dress with her hair swept up. He'd recognize her instantly. Passengers began disembarking. A drummer with sample cases, a preacher and his wife, a cattle buyer Tom recognized from Helena. And then a young woman appeared in the doorway, hesitating at the top of the steps. Tom's heart skipped. She wasn't alone. The woman who descended was nothing like the daguerreotype. This woman had hair the color of wheat under summer sun, falling in loose waves beneath a simple bonnet. Her deep blue dress was travel-worn but carefully mended, and her face, though beautiful with high cheekbones and a delicate chin, showed signs of weariness. At barely 20 years old, she appeared both younger and somehow older than he'd expected. But what made Tom's prepared speech die in his throat were the 5 children who followed her, the oldest boy about 10, then 2 girls, another boy, and a toddler clutching her skirts. The station master looked at Tom with raised eyebrows. "That your mail-order bride, Kincaid?" Tom couldn't answer, watching as the woman scanned the platform anxiously. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Recognition, confusion, and something else Tom couldn't name. She approached cautiously, the children forming a protective cluster around her. "Mr. Thomas Kincaid?" Her voice was soft but clear, with a slight tremor. "Yes, ma'am," he managed, still holding the wilting flowers. She extended her hand. "I'm Laurel Lawson. I believe you were expecting Abigail Pierce." The world seemed to tilt beneath Tom's boots. "I was." "She isn't coming." Laurel's green eyes met his directly. "She's my cousin, Abigail. She married another 2 weeks before departure. I came in her stead." The oldest boy stepped forward protectively. "Mama said we're gonna live on a ranch now." Tom looked from the boy to Laurel, comprehension dawning slowly. "You're a widow." "Yes. My husband Daniel died in a mine collapse last winter." Her chin lifted slightly. "I understand this isn't what you agreed to. If you can direct us to the hotel, we'll find other arrangements." The 5 children looked up at him with solemn eyes that had seen too much hardship. The smallest one, a girl with her mother's wheat-colored hair, clutched a worn rag doll, her thumb firmly in her mouth. Everything in Tom wanted to retreat, to apologize and walk away from this unexpected complication. His ranch was no place for a woman with 5 children. He'd expected a bride, not an instant family. Yet something stopped him, perhaps the quiet dignity in Laurel's posture, or the protective way her hand rested on her children's shoulders. "There's no hotel in Silver Creek," Tom said, clearing his throat. "Just a saloon with rooms upstairs not fit for children." Laurel's face fell, though she tried to hide it. I see. The station master interjected. Next train east doesn't come through for 4 days. A heavy silence fell, broken only by the impatient snort of Tom's horses hitched to the wagon nearby. 5 pairs of children's eyes watched him warily, and 1 pair of green eyes waited with quiet resignation, as if accustomed to disappointment. My wagon's over there, Tom said finally, gesturing to the team of chestnuts. I can take you to the ranch for tonight. We'll figure things out tomorrow. Relief washed over Laurel's face. Thank you, Mr. Kincaid. Children, thank the gentleman. A chorus of small voices thanked him, and Tom found himself loading trunks and helping children into his wagon, wondering what he'd gotten himself into. The practical arrangement he'd planned had just become far more complicated. As they traveled the rutted road toward the Double K, Tom cast sideways glances at the woman beside him. Up close, he could see the faint lines around her eyes that spoke of both laughter and tears. I should explain, Laurel said as the children marveled at the open range around them. Abigail wrote to me after your proposal. I'd been taking in laundry since Daniel died, barely making ends meet. When she decided to marry Dr. Fuller instead, she suggested I come in her place. Her hands twisted nervously in her lap. I should have written, but there wasn't time, and I was afraid you'd say no before you met us. You were right, Tom said honestly. I would have. She nodded, accepting this without offense. I understand. 5 children is a lot to ask of anyone. What are their names? Tom asked, surprising himself with the question. The oldest is James, 10. Then Sarah, who's 8, Mary 6, William 4, and little Emma is almost 3. Pride softened her voice. They're good children, Mr. Kincaid. Hard workers, all of them. Tom thought of his 4-bedroom ranch house, built with hopes of filling it someday. Mrs. Lawson, I don't know what to tell you. I'm a simple rancher. I don't know the first thing about children. Children are simpler than cattle, Mr. Kincaid. They come when called if there's food involved. A hint of humor sparked in her eyes. Despite himself, Tom found the corner of his mouth twitching upward. The wagon crested a hill, and the Double K ranch came into view below. The sturdy 2-story house, the barn and corrals, the bunkhouse for the 3 hands he employed, the vegetable garden gone to seed since his mother died. Laurel drew in a breath. It's beautiful. Tom saw his home through new eyes. Not the endless work and loneliness, but the achievement, the potential. It's still rough around the edges. Most worthwhile things are, she replied softly. The children gasped as a herd of horses galloped across a distant pasture, their excitement infectious. For the first time, Tom wondered if perhaps the empty rooms of his house had been waiting not just for a wife, but for a family. As he helped them down from the wagon, little Emma reached for him trustingly, and Tom found himself holding a child for the first time in his life. Her small weight in his arms awakened something he'd thought long buried, a need for connection that went beyond practical arrangements. We'll stay tonight, he said gruffly, and figure out tomorrow when it comes. But as he opened his door to this unexpected family, Tom Kincaid had the unsettling feeling that tomorrow had already arrived, appending everything he thought he knew about his solitary life on the frontier. Over the next 2 weeks, the Double K ranch transformed in ways Tom could never have imagined. Laurel proved herself hardworking beyond measure. She rose before dawn, preparing meals for the children and the ranch hands alike. The neglected garden was cleared and replanted, the musty curtains washed and rehung, and the long silent piano in the parlor opened for the first time in years as Sarah demonstrated her beginner's skills. Tom found himself rising earlier and lingering longer at meals, drawn by the laughter and chatter that now filled his home. James followed him everywhere, eager to learn about horses and cattle. Even William, shy at first, began trailing after them, clutching a small wooden horse Tom had whittled for him. Yet despite this growing ease, Tom maintained his distance emotionally. This was temporary, he reminded himself. He would help Laurel and her children get established somewhere suitable, perhaps in Helena where there were proper schools. The ranch was no place for a refined woman and 5 children. One evening as they sat on the porch after the children were asleep, Tom finally broached the subject. Mrs. Lawson, I've been thinking. There's a teaching position open in Helena. With your education, you'd be well suited. Laurel's hands stilled in her mending. You want us to leave? It's not about wanting, Tom said carefully. It's about what's practical. This ranch is isolated, dangerous at times. The winters are harsh. There's no proper schooling. I can teach my children, she countered. And they're flourishing here. James hasn't had a single nightmare since we arrived. Nightmares? Laurel's eyes grew distant. After Daniel died, James would wake screaming, convinced the mine was collapsing on him too. Out here, under these open skies. She gestured to the stars spreading across the Montana night. He's healing. Tom shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Lawson, Laurel, she corrected gently. After 2 weeks of sharing meals, you might use my given name. Laurel, he conceded, the name feeling right on his tongue. I'm not the man you're looking for. I've spent 5 years alone by choice. I don't know how to be part of a family anymore. She studied him thoughtfully. I think you know more than you believe. I've seen you with Emma, teaching her to feed the chickens. I've watched you listening to James's endless questions with patience. You're a good man, Thomas Kincaid. Tom, he said quietly. Just Tom. A smile touched her lips. Tom, the way she said his name, like it was something precious, made his chest tighten. Dangerous territory, this feeling. He stood abruptly. I should check the horses. Good night, Mrs. Laurel. He retreated to the barn, his sanctuary, but even there he couldn't escape the memories of small hands helping him with chores, of Laurel's laughter when Emma had chased a butterfly through the kitchen, of the warm feeling of rightness when they'd all gathered around the table. The frontier had taught Tom that attachment meant inevitable loss. Yet for the first time in years, he wondered if isolation was truly protection or just another kind of death. The turning point came 3 weeks after their arrival, during the spring cattle drive. Tom had left Laurel and the children at the ranch with his most trusted hand, Pete, while he and the others moved cattle to summer pastures. A spring storm had delayed their return by 2 days. As they crested the final ridge toward home, Tom saw smoke rising from the chimney and felt an unfamiliar surge of anticipation. Home. The word had new meaning now. The dogs barked their arrival, and the front door burst open. Children spilled out, running toward the riders with delighted cries. Little Emma toddled down the steps, arms outstretched, calling Tom. Tom, for the first time. Without thinking, Tom swung down from his horse and caught her up, her small arms wrapping around his neck in complete trust. The other children surrounded him, talking all at once about the baby calves Pete had shown them and the bread they'd helped bake. And then he saw Laurel in the doorway, her hair loose around her shoulders, wearing one of his mother's old aprons, a smile of welcome lighting her face. Something shifted inside him, a wall crumbling, a truth revealing itself. This was what he'd been missing. This was what no amount of land or cattle could provide. This was home. That night, after the excited children were finally asleep, Tom found Laurel alone in the kitchen. She turned from the stove where she was heating milk, and the firelight caught her face, revealing a fading bruise on her cheekbone. What happened? He demanded, crossing to her in 2 strides. She touched the mark self-consciously. It's nothing. A man came looking for work while you were gone. Pete sent him away, but not before he got insistent. Said a woman alone had no business running a ranch. Anger surged through Tom. Did he hurt the children? No. Pete intervened. She smiled slightly. I may have helped with a cast iron skillet. Relief mixed with admiration. You fought him off. I've learned to protect what's mine. Something vulnerable flickered in her eyes. Tom, I know this isn't what you planned, but these past weeks, my children are happy here. They're safe. And you? He asked, his voice rough. Are you happy? She met his gaze steadily. I didn't expect to find happiness again after Daniel. But here, with you. She hesitated. I've started to hope. The word hope hung between them, fragile and powerful. Tom reached out, gently touching the bruise on her cheek. I thought I needed to be alone to survive out here. I thought connecting with people just meant more pain when they left. Some people leave, Laurel whispered. Others stay. I want you to stay, Tom admitted. All of you. Not because it's practical, but because nothing feels right when you're not here. Laurel's eyes glistened. Is that a proposal, Thomas Kincaid? A poor one, he acknowledged with a small smile. I should probably court you properly first. You've been courting me by treating my children with kindness, she said softly. That's worth more than any bouquet or pretty words. Tom drew her gently into his arms, and when their lips met, it felt like coming home after a long journey. This wasn't the practical arrangement he'd planned, but something far more precious. Their newfound happiness was tested the following month when a letter arrived from Boston. Laurel's face paled as she read it at the breakfast table. "What is it?" Tom asked, concern mounting as she pressed a hand to her mouth. "It's from Abigail's mother," she said shakily. "She's offering to take the children." Tom felt as if the ground had dropped from beneath him. "Take them? What?" "She says they'd have advantages in Boston. Proper schooling, society, opportunities." Laurel looked up, her eyes troubled. "She's wealthy. She could give them things we never could." "But she's not their mother," Tom said firmly. "You are. She says a frontier ranch is no place for children to be raised properly." Laurel's voice caught, "Especially with a man who isn't their father." The children, picking up on the tension, grew quiet, exchanging worried glances. "Is someone taking us away, Mama?" Sarah asked, her small face creased with worry. "No," Tom answered before Laurel could, his voice stronger than he felt. "No one's taking you anywhere." After breakfast, as the children went to their chores, Tom found Laurel on the porch, the letter clutched in her hand. "You're considering it," he said, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. "I have to consider what's best for them," she replied, though her voice betrayed her pain. In Boston, they could have education, opportunities, security. "They have security here," Tom insisted. "They have a future. James already talks about which part of the ranch will be his someday. And what about when winter comes? When the nearest doctor is 2 days' ride? When they need schooling beyond what I can provide?" The unspoken question hung between them. What would happen if they married, had children of their own? Would Tom still care for her 5 as equally? Tom took her hands in his. "Laurel, I never thought I'd have a family. I believed the frontier was too harsh for happiness, that staying alone was safer. But you and the children taught me I was wrong." He drew a deep breath. "I love them. All of them. And I love you." Tears filled her eyes. "You've never said that before." "I should have. Every day since you arrived." He cupped her face gently. "Write to Abigail's mother. Tell her the children stay with us. Tell her they'll have everything they need, including a father who'll love them as his own, if you'll have me." "Are you certain?" 5 children is a tremendous responsibility. 5 children, 6, a dozen. "They're ours," Tom said firmly. "Our family." The letter to Boston was sent the next day. 2 weeks later, they were married in the small church in Silver Creek, with the children standing proudly beside them. James gave his mother away, chest puffed out in importance. That autumn, as the aspen leaves turned gold, Tom officially adopted all 5 children, their names entered in the county records as Kincaids. When the judge asked if he understood the responsibility he was undertaking, Tom answered without hesitation, "They've been mine since the moment they stepped off that train." One evening as winter approached, Tom sat on the porch with Laurel, watching the children playing in the yard. Emma toddled over and climbed into his lap without hesitation, settling against his chest with complete trust. "Remember when you said the frontier was no place for a family?" Laurel asked, her hand resting on her stomach where their newest addition grew. Tom smiled, remembering the lonely man who'd once believed that. "I was wrong. The frontier is exactly where a family belongs. It takes all of us, together, to build something that lasts." As the sun set over the Double K Ranch, painting the sky in brilliant gold and crimson, Tom Kincaid looked at the home and family he'd never expected. The wife who had healed his guarded heart, the children who had filled his empty rooms with laughter, and the new life growing that would join them in spring. The cowboy had waited for a mail-order bride, but a widow with 5 children had stepped off the wagon instead. And in that unexpected arrival, Thomas Kincaid had found everything he never knew he was searching for, not merely survival on the frontier, but a life truly worth living.